Hello and welcome to GeoLearn and a series called the Surveyor's Judicial Role. This is tutorial number 1 entitled, What is the Real Role of the Boundary Surveyor? My name's Gary Kent and let's get started. Surveyors all know and have heard this phrase, boundary surveying is part art and it's part science. All surveyors have heard this, all surveyors are familiar with this, but I'd like to break that down a little bit. Think, what is art? What does that mean? Well, someone had suggested to me recently that perhaps that the genesis of that comes more from the artisan, the standpoint of artisan, and that surveying be an art in the same way that a lot of other things that we might call professions today, or certainly trades, were considered arts back, for example, in the Middle Ages. But I think nowadays, at least in my mind, I think about the art of surveying being perhaps the way that we present our information on our plat or our map. You know, if you're in probably any place in the United States and you look at a subdivision plat from the 50s or 60s and you've been around, you've been surveying for a long time, you can pick up a plat without even looking at the title block, without looking to see who signed it. You knew immediately who had prepared it because they had a particular way that they put their stuff together and presented it. And there's kind of an art to that. I think there's also an art to, for example, how we write a legal description. Every surveyor has kind of a style of how they do that. I know the way I write mine, I can with fairly high level of confidence look at a description and in about 5 or 10 seconds figure out whether I wrote that or not with a pretty high degree of probability, other than the people that I trained and who picked up really closely the things that I trained them. So that's probably part of the art. I think there's an art to what goes on out in the field also. You know, we send field crews out to do things and maybe we're trying to have them find a stone or find some subdivision corner and they can't find it, and we go out and we're able to fairly quickly assess what's going on. You know, some of that's experience, but I think some of that is an art also. The second thing is this idea of surveying being part science. I think this is the science of measurement. This is what we talk about when we say boundary surveying is part art and part science. The science of measurement, understanding our equipment, understanding adjustments, understanding settings, how the equipment works, understanding optics, EDM measurements, our GPS. But I also kind of discount measurement a little bit because surveyors know our equipment is so good nowadays, we can go to the local drugstore and find somebody wandering the aisles and take them out in the parking lot with a piece of survey equipment and have them making survey quality measurements in, 10 minutes probably. And if that's the case, then that can't be what surveying is about. Right? Sometimes I use the equivalent, say, well, I have a stethoscope actually at my house. I know how to use a stethoscope. You know, it doesn't make me a doctor though. It's just a tool, right? Measurements are a tool, and as we're going to see later on in tutorial number 4 here of this series, it's pretty low on the totem pole of importance when it comes to resolving boundaries. Right? So if we make measurements, they need to be good measurements, but it's not what boundary surveying is about. Right? What are boundaries defined by? The courts have told us for forever that boundaries are defined by unwritten rights, they're defined by senior rights, they're defined by surveys, they're defined by monuments. Measurements are way down on the list. So there is a science to boundary surveying, but I kind of discount that a little bit. And really what boundary surveying is about is mostly an application of the law. And we're going to look later on in this series on the order of conflicting title evidence, which I just mentioned a few minutes ago. Where did that stuff come from? You know, where do our boundary law principles and our boundary law rules come from? Was it because someone like Curtis Brown decided, you know what, I think I'll make up some rules for surveyors to do boundaries? No, this is common law rules out of the courts for hundreds of years who have said, for example, a monument is going to override, in most cases, a distance. So in resolving boundaries, we're talking about understanding what the law has said and applying that law to the situations, to the evidence, to the facts that we have.